is because they desperately want to create a distraction. As I told you last night, they do not want you, the American people, to know about the biggest story in their lifetimes that involve real evidence of wrongdoings and crimes that they have missed. It's been a huge week of revelations about corruptions at the highest levels of the FBI and the DOJ. And tonight we have even more new text messages we will share with you from the Trump-bashing FBI lovers, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. And all of this will prove that we've been on the right course. Now, also, Fox News is learning that the classified memo, the one we've been talking about, released the memo detailing major FISA abuses against the Trump campaign. That will be released likely midweek next week. And also tonight, a stunning report that Hillary Clinton actually protected a senior advisor on her 2008 presidential campaign that was accused of sexually harassing a young staffer. But first, a lot to get to. We start with tonight's Friday breaking news opening monologue. Glad you're with us. All right, all you members of the Trump-hating media, we know you're watching. Well, let's start with a little news flash for you. President Trump did not, let me repeat, did not fire the special counsel, Robert Mueller. So all of you rigid, radical, left-wing ideologues, you need to take a collective deep breath or a Xanax or a drink, whatever works better. Now, you can take it and you can breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth and see if you can stop with your hysteria, your breathless reporting, this rampant speculation. And I want you to listen closely. President Trump, he did not fire the special counsel, Robert Mueller. In fact, the president and his legal team have been more than cooperative. They have voluntarily handed over 20,000 pages to the special counsel. In total, Robert Mueller has collected 1.4 million pages of documents from the campaign. And then there's this. According to the New York Times and other liberal media outlets, President Trump demanded Robert Mueller be fired. But Fox News tonight is reporting the president did not order Mueller to be removed. Instead, there was just a conversation back in June about the possibility, given Mueller's massive conflicts of interest. This is why last night I did not and will never in the future trust the New York Times, because they have gotten it wrong time after time after time. And it's why President Trump is ripping the so-called paper of record. Let's take a look.
Did you fire Robert Mueller? Do you want to fire Robert Mueller?
Fake news, folks. Fake news.
What's your message today?
Typical New York Times fake stories.
See, facts, truth, we've been telling you for a long time, it doesn't matter to the liberal mainstream media. And it's why last night when the New York Times posted their story, about 10 minutes till showtime for this show, the media goes into a frenzy. They're foaming at the mouth. They completely lost it. It's funny on the one hand, but sad because journalism's dead. Watch this.
The President of the United States tried to fire the independent counsel, Robert Mueller III. Does that rise to the level of an impeachable offense?
There's always been a question of whether or not Donald Trump is simply ignorant or whether he's corrupt. I think the more information we get, you start to lean toward corrupt.
Of all things, Donald Trump, through his first year in office, has done everything possible to undermine, obstruct, demean, and halt this legitimate investigation.
It adds to the mounting evidence that there is a serious obstruction case here.
I don't know how this movie ends, but there was a lot of bloodshed in The Godfather, and this is going to be a rough year.
It is so pathetically predictable from the news media. You know what? They never waste an opportunity to smear this president, peddle fake news. They don't care any longer about the truth. That's sad. Now, their singular goal is to damage, destroy President Trump. You can see it hour in, hour out, day in, day out, minute by minute. It's why the media has been getting caught in the wrong countless times, so-called major news stories. Let's give you a few examples just from last year. Remember fake news, CNN, the old network? Well, they falsely reported that Donald Trump Jr. received an email by WikiLeaks in advance of their release of the DNC emails and other documents. Well, it turned out that fake news, CNN, well, they got the date of the email totally wrong. It came one day after WikiLeaks made the DNC documents public. Remember ABC's Brian Ross, spectacularly wrong when he reported the former National Security Advisor, General Michael Flynn, that he was going to testify that President Trump ordered him during the campaign to contact Russian officials. Well, that fake news actually tanked the stock market, and Ross then had to issue a correction saying, oh, it happened during the transition. which means he was talking to a future counterpart. A huge difference. Now, Ross was suspended and is now banned from even covering President Trump. I can think of a lot of other people that should be banned as well. Now, we also have a totally dishonest Washington Post reporter. This is David Weigel. Now, he posts a picture from President Trump's recent rally showing that little tiny itsy-bitsy crowd. And the caption reads, "Packed to the rafters." Here's the problem. That picture is deceptive because it was taken before most people had gotten in there. And Weigel later apologized and deleted the tweet. Whoopsie daisy. Well, that's your media at its finest, at work. And by the way, those are only a few of the many examples of epic fake news screw-ups and anonymous sourcing, of course. It's why the New York Times, they report about Robert Mueller, and the media is over the top. The sky is falling down. Hysteria, coverage, breathless coverage. Well, it's not surprising. For over a year, they have been pushing conspiracy theories. They have been chasing ghosts about Trump-Russia collusion, and we still have no evidence. Now, meanwhile, the media has been completely oblivious to the biggest stories, it's right there, of their lifetime. Now, from what we've seen, it's shaping up to be the biggest scandal in American history, and they have missed the boat. Now, this is going to make Watergate look like an afterthought, and only a fraction of the information has yet to come out. We have been uncovering and reporting night after night on massive, severe constitutional abuses that were committed by top-ranking Obama, DOJ, FBI officials against the Trump campaign. New evidence is also showing that the Clinton email investigation was a total sham. It was rigged. The fix was in. And tonight, we have new text messages from corrupt, Trump-bashing FBI lovers Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. In a new exchange, it appears the couple was leaking information about the Clinton email investigation to the media. Look at the date, just before Anthony Weiner's laptop computer. Lisa Page writes, well, still on with Devlin. Politico is saying that's now Washington Post reporter Devlin Barrett. And Page finishes, Mike's phone is on fire. Strzok responds, it's on the news. Then adds, you may want to tell Devlin he should turn on CNN. There's news going on. And Strzok also says, sorry. And then Page replies, he knows, he just got handed a note. And Strzok says, ha, he's asking about it now. And Page answers, yeah, it was pretty funny. Coming now. Now, minutes after those texts are sent, Devlin Barrett then writes on Twitter, sources are telling him that emails on Weiner's computer might not be new, and instead were just copies of Clinton emails that the FBI has already looked at. Now, we reached out to the reporter, and he told us, no comment. Shocking. So we have what looks like leaks from Page and Strzok, and there's so many more, 50,000 total. This is only the tip of the iceberg. Let's go back to February 25th, 2016. Look at this. Page messaging her boyfriend Strzok. One more thing. She might be our next president. The last thing you need is us going in there loaded for bear. You think she's going to remember or care that it was more DOJ than FBI? And Strzok replies, agreed. So in February, Strzok and Page are actually saying they're worried about actually investigating Clinton because she might end up being mad at them and may want revenge if she wins because they think she's going to win. And they're trying to help her. Then just months later, in May, remember, it was James Comey and Strzok and other key FBI officials. They started writing Clinton's exoneration statement. This is months before interviewing her and 17 other key witnesses. When do you write an exoneration? Before an investigation. Now, this is where they changed the language. Remember, from the legal standard, gross negligence is a crime. They take that out. They put in extreme carelessness. Means the same thing, but legally, a very big distinction. Well, that means they give Clinton a get-out-of-jail-free card. Then they also altered language about foreign actors likely hacking Clinton's server. That puts people's lives at risk. And they removed a reference to Clinton emailing with then-President Obama, which means he knew about the server. That means he needs to be investigated. That means he needs to be put under oath. So in other words, the fix on the email server scandal was in. Now remember, any of these issues that we're talking about with the email server scandal, they're all crimes. Mishandling classified information, destroying top secret classified special access program information. They're all crimes. deleting 33,000 subpoenaed emails, crime. Acid washing, bleach pit, hard drives, crime. That's obstruction. Bashing devices with hammers, obstruction. So you have Strzok and Page literally putting the fix in along with Comey and apparently McCabe and Loretta Lynch all knew. And they're talking about the need at one point for a special counsel to investigate Clinton's emails. On March 18th, Strzok writes, thought of the perfect person, and Dee can bounce this off of. Page asks who? And responds, Pat, who Senator Grassley says is Patrick Fitzgerald, the special counsel. Remember in the Valerie Plame affair? He's the guy that put innocent Scooter Libby in jail, or got him a guilty plea in that case. And you got to give me some credit if we go with him and delay briefing him until I can get back and do it. In other words, with his own prejudice, his own point of view, his own spin. Late next week or later, he says. And then Strzok says later, I could work with him again and damn, we get blank done. And Page follows up with, I know, like I said, we discussed boss and him yesterday. And on May 13th, 2016, Page follows up on the idea. She says to Strzok, hey, forgot to ask if you mentioned the whole special counsel thing to Andy. We assume that's Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe. Now, what Strzok and Page are doing here is stunning. And here's why. Strzok had a massive, massive role in the entire Clinton email probe. He oversaw the interview with Hillary Clinton and her top aides long after they wrote the exoneration. And Page, as you might remember, was McCabe's legal counselor. And they're both saying a special counsel is needed, which means that they had doubts that the FBI would do a real investigation, which they didn't do. Now, Senator Ron Johnson also made news this week, releasing text messages. On May 19th, Strzok appears to be talking about getting an offer to join Mueller's investigation. This is key here. Strzok says, my answer is no, I don't want to join that investigation. And then, the lead division, and then I think, wait a minute, this may be a case, will be in the history books, a chapter, much like you tell me about my extra time in the field and all the field cases. Would you trade it? 1 million people sit and ad and staff jobs. This is a chance to do. It may be the most important case of our lives. And around 30 minutes later, Strzok asked Page the question, an investigation leading to impeachment? He's the one that said there's no there. So in this case, it seems like Strzok knew that Mueller was going to try and impeach the president. And he wanted to be a part of history. But he didn't think there was any there. Go back to May 19th in the exchange, 2 days after Mueller was named special counsel. Strzok says, you and I both know the odds are nothing. If I thought it was likely, I'd be there, no question. I hesitate in part because of my gut sense and concern there's no big there. So Strzok, who served, he was a top intelligence official at the FBI. He signed the papers to start this phony Russia investigation. And he's saying that he knew from the start that Mueller would be carrying out a witch hunt. He didn't know if he wanted to be a part of it. And revelations about former Attorney General Loretta Lynch and her involvement in the Clinton email server cover-up. Now, it's June 2016. Remember Bill Clinton? He meets Loretta Lynch on the tarmac. They're supposedly talking about grandchildren for 40 minutes, which causes Lynch to say on July 1st that she was, literally stepping away from the investigation and she would accept whatever the FBI concluded. Now, keep in mind, all of this is before Hillary Clinton's interviewed. That happened on the 4th of July weekend, 3 days later. So after Lynch's statement, she's going to step back here, let the FBI decide. She'll go along with what they decide after she met with Bill Clinton on the tarmac. Well, Strzok, he writes back to Page, timing looks like hell, talking about Clinton and Lynch meeting on the tarmac. Page replies, yeah, awful timing. And Page later adds, it's a real profile in courage, meaning Loretta Lynch, since she knows no charges will be brought. Here's the problem. No decision was made. 4 days later, 3 days later, Hillary's interviewed. 4 days later, Comey holds his press conference, spends 13 and a half minutes laying out the case that Hillary Clinton should be indicted, and at the last 30 seconds of that, lets her off the hook. So you have Strzok and Page and Lynch and Andrew McCabe and James Comey all apparently knowing Clinton was never going to get charged, and the Obama administration put the fix in. The corruption here, if you're a New York Times writer, is unprecedented. you should maybe be covering a real story. Because when you put it all together, here's what it all means. You have Hillary Clinton, we now know, fixed the primary against Bernie Sanders, or I'll use Donna Brazil's word, rigged it. Then struck Comey, Lynch, McCabe, others. They all put the fix it. That allows Clinton to stay in the presidential race. They don't want to rock the boat. They want her to beat Donald Trump. So they'll overlook the crimes, the obvious crimes, with the incontrovertible evidence. Clinton and the DNC, then they try to influence the election with a bought and paid for $12 million Russian dossier full of Russian salacious lies and propaganda. And the Obama administration, they took the dossier, they weaponized the powerful tools of surveillance and intelligence, and then used the phony dossier to get a FISA warrant to target members of then the Trump campaign and later the incoming president. If this isn't Watergate on steroids and every single person involved not investigated and not prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, we have shredded our Constitution. Because you have powerful Obama administration officials in the FBI, in the DOJ, clearly trying to circumvent what is the will of you, the American people, because they did not want Donald Trump to become president. We can never let this happen again. And the only way to do that is to make sure we get every fact, every bit of truth, expose it to the American people, and those people that committed crimes need to go to jail. The key players need to be exposed. Now, which is what congressional Republicans, they're trying to do. They've been fighting to release the memo, some of them. You've been helping a lot, you in this audience. And what do we know from that memo that will be released probably next Wednesday or Thursday? We are told it will show severe FISA abuses against the Trump campaign and the president-elect and his team. And Fox News is learning that memo is going to be released likely in a matter of days. It is imperative. Keep the pressure on. Keep calling your members of Congress. Demand release the memo. The number of your bottom of the screen will get through, 202-224-3121. You've got to put the pressure on them. Tell Congress, release the memo. We deserve to know the truth. And while they're at it, release all 50,000 texts. All right, joining us now with reaction, former deputy assistant to the president, Fox News national security strategist Sebastian Gorka, and Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Greg, let's start with you on the legal side of this. Look, it is a lot to take in. We take every bit of new text messages now every night. Mm-hmm. We put it with the old text messages every night and put it with other information that we've gleaned over the year. All facts. Now we have a very clear picture of what went on.
Yes, increasingly the evidence is mounting now that Strzok and Page and others at the FBI were engaged in what's called a corrupt purpose. That's important because that's in the obstruction of justice statute. So these messages reveal several things. One, they knew the evidence against Hillary Clinton was enough to charge her. Second of all, they changed the language from charging her to exonerating her. And third, they did it for political reasons because they wanted her to be president. They thought she would be president. They didn't want to anger or alienate her.
Did Comey, Strzok, Page, McCabe, and Loretta Lynch, who all knew ahead of time, no charge? That's not a real investigation. You don't write exoneration before investigation. All right. Did they obstruct justice?
Oh, absolutely. If they did it for a political reason, I think the evidence demonstrates that they did.
For any reason?
Thank goodness for electronic technology, because this is the smoking gun evidence of their motivations, and motivations is how you prove obstruction of justice.
Sebastian Gorka, you were in the White House during a lot of this time. I'm sure it took a lot of energy, time, attention away from governing the country. Maybe that was the goal of some people. The president still had a great year. But when you see the level, the use of FISA courts, the weaponry of intelligence, when you see people at the highest levels doing this, to me it's chilling as somebody that believes in the rule of law, equal justice under the law, and the U.S. Constitution.
It is truly chilling, Sean, as the child of parents who escaped a communist dictatorship where the police was used for political purposes. Now that I'm a proud American, I never thought I'd see the day where the vaunted FBI people inside that agency, senior management individuals, would be openly talking about giving special treatment to an individual they wanted to become president. We were in the White House. I was secure that there was no issue. The president told me they will find nothing because there was no collusion. We've been accused of obstruction of justice, of conspiring with the Russians. Not one piece of evidence. And what do we know today? We now know that inside Obama's FBI, there was a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice. One woman who had committed felonies. It's not a question, as Greg has said. You mishandle classified information, you have committed a felony. That individual was treated with kid gloves, given a pass, and then we know the FBI gives money to steal.
Let's talk about the media. And you're right. In every point, and so is Greg. What about the media? They'll go with an anonymous source about a story that never came to fruition about Donald Trump. You know, in the case of Donald Trump, he's asking if there's conflicts. They say no, he doesn't fire. And they make that big news. With all this evidence, go ahead.
Let's put this into context. We are talking, your team, you and your team have been doing the heavy lifting every night in your monologues. And one day that data will be used in a court of law to prosecute these people. I am sure of it. But what's the media doing in the meantime? When they're not colluding with these people inside the Obama administration, as those text messages demonstrate, what are they doing? Just a week ago, they're asking the vice admiral, the rear admiral, who is the president's surgeon, whether he's still drinking Diet Coke every day. This is the biggest scandal in modern American history, and the media either ignores it or is complicit, and that's the outrage.
All right. If President Trump is saying, does Robert Mueller have a conflict and doesn't fire him, how is that a story?
It's a legitimate concern. And again, under the obstruction...
A legitimate concern of the president.
Yes.
If the special counsel has a conflict.
And for the nation, for goodness sakes. I've written about it ad nauseum. You know, journalists have been howling for the last 24 hours. This is obstruction of justice by the president. Those reporters don't know anything about the law. They've never read the statute. As I mentioned before in a different context, it requires a corrupt act by the president.
That didn't happen.
He was engaging in a legitimate act, according to the New York Times, if you believe them, trying to remove Mueller because of his myriad of conflicts of interest and replacing him with somebody who would be legitimate, objective, fair, and neutral.
A reasonable thing that anyone would do.
Right. It's not obstruction of justice. These idiot journalists, and I watch them all morning long.
They're not journalists.
They don't know. They're really
hacks.
not. And they don't know a damn thing
Journalism's
about the law.
dead, Greg.
Right.
All
they have to do is look it up. It takes a nanosecond, for God's sake.
They're sheep. They follow each other in the little echo chamber.
Comprehend if they read it.
Thank you both. And coming up, Newt Gingrich, he sounds off on the so-called huge New York Times exclusive report where nothing happened. Straight ahead.
Historians are going to look back on this period as schizophrenic insanity. On the one hand, you have genuine FBI information coming out about clearly covering up for Hillary Clinton in ways that are astonishing, which probably won't make page one of the New York Times. On the other hand, you have a non-story about a non-event. I mean, if the president didn't actually fire Mueller, even if the president got really angry and said, gee, I'd love to fire Mueller, there was no event there. Now, the idea that the president somehow is culpable of not liking Mueller and that is somehow going to be, you know, an obstruction of justice, it tells you how desperate the left is getting.
Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, calling out the schizophrenic insanity surrounding the treatment of President Trump. Joining us now with more reaction from Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton, and Fox News contributor Sarah Carter. Sarah, you know, a non-story about a non-event. I think that pretty much sums up the media hysteria yesterday. But what they missed yesterday was what you were reporting and we were reporting, and that is just how abusively biased Strzok and Page were and how many people were in the loop knowing that the fix was in as it relates to doing a real investigation into Hillary Clinton before they interviewed her. Exonerations before any investigation. So, you know, that's got to be frustrating as you have been unpeeling every layer of this onion.
Well, it's very frustrating, Sean, because what we see is leaks come out. So as information comes out about the FBI, about these text messages between these two FBI agents, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, and as more evidence starts to unravel, you get a leak like this that goes to the New York Times. And it's really a non-story because the president has every right to question whether or not, you know, Special Counsel Mueller is right for this job. He has every right to discuss this privately with his attorneys. And as we see, nothing happened. So he didn't fire Special Counsel Mueller. He talked with someone about the circumstances apparently around Special Counsel Mueller. So there was no order to actually fire him. And I think what's really frustrating is that the American people are not getting well informed by all of these very important news agencies. I mean, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, they're not focused on these stories. And right now, what we know is that the FBI, and let's go back to the story we just talked about the other day, Sean, the fact that the FBI and the DOJ said, oh, we lost all of these 5 months of text messages through a technical glitch and you won't be able to get them. And then all of a sudden, now they have them. We have to ask, why did they say that to begin with? What are they hiding? What is going on? It's our job to be the watchdog.
Why did Rod Rosenstein, just hours before the House Intel Committee was going to get the subpoenaed documents, was he begging Paul Ryan, please, please don't release this? Tom Fitton, one of the roles that Judicial Watch has played, I think, has been very key in getting information. I know you file a lot of Freedom of Information Act requests, but think about this. All right, so I hope, it looks like we'll get the memo next week, probably midweek after the State of the Union. But why do we have to wait to get the 50,000 text messages? Why not release them? All right, they would have a right maybe to look for information that could put somebody in harm's way. Fair enough. Well, but that doesn't take that long.
That's exactly right. We've been asking for, we have numerous requests to which these text messages are probably responsive and lawsuits, and we've been getting the runaround. We've been asking about them since we found out about it. We asked the Justice Department and FBI what's going on here, and they basically told us if you want them, sue us again. And, you know, we did sue them. We asked for the text messages, we sued, and a few hours later they found them. This is about this news story that was planted this week about the President Trump's concerns about Mueller, the text messages, the gamesmanship there, the Justice Department fighting the House on releasing a summary memo of this underlying material. It's all about protecting the Mueller operation. And what I think the headline is in the New York Times and Washington Post is Mueller has conflicts that have been unaddressed. He, for instance, is investigating the firing of Comey, the very job opening for which he interviewed. Why is he anywhere near this investigation given that conflict? And why is the president the one having to raise it? Where's the Justice Department and Rod Rosenstein and making sure that Mueller is unbiased and conflict-free?
The Daily Beast is saying Rosenstein and Comey and McCabe are all in this memo we'll see next week. That's the one leak we got on it. All right, Sarah, you and I have discussed next week's a big news week. Even the memo is only a small portion of what's coming out in this case. You know, where I know you are in the middle of two big investigative reports that I think you'll be breaking next week. One about Andrew Weissman, if I'm allowed to tip your hand for you.
You did.
Being the nice guy that I am. What's coming next week, and how big do you think this memo ends up being?
Well, first, it is true. I think, you know, we need to focus on the members of the special counsel. And Andrew Weissman, Sean, has come up over and over again. And he's very important because he's a central part of the investigation. So I do have something coming out next week with regard to Andrew Weissman. Another very important facet, another story that's going to be out next week is, of course, the FISA memo. And we expect that to be out sometime after the State of the Union in midweek. And it's explosive. And I know this not just from talking to congressional members, but other law enforcement officials who have gone to Congress as whistleblowers about FISA abuse cases. This should shock every American. And this is a way to keep our country in check. And you're right, it's one part of so many more pieces of this puzzle. Because remember, a lot of this information, Sean, is classified. It's classified information, so we can't get our hands on it. So they'll go ahead and put out the pieces redacted, I think, after the FISA memo.
Sean,
right,
quickly,
real quick, Tom, I got to roll.
Andrew Weissman, the number 2 at the Mueller's operation, sent an email supporting Sally Yates' attack on Trump's order, refusal to follow it, went to Hillary Clinton's election night party. Why is he anywhere near this investigation?
And he leaked information about Paul Manafort before he started investigating Paul Manafort to the AP. So many conflicts with all of them, and it's all beginning to come together. Next week will be a massive news week on top of the State of the Union and the memo being released. All right, when we come back, more breaking news this Friday. The president pushed his American First agenda in front of the world and world leaders today. We've got highlights. What a difference, well, a year makes. Straight ahead.
Since my election, we've created 2.4 million jobs. Small business optimism is at an all-time high. New unemployment claims are near the lowest we've seen in almost half a century. I'm here to deliver a simple message. There has never been a better time to hire, to build, to invest, and to grow in the United States. We've just enacted the most significant tax cuts and reform in American history. As President of the United States, I will always put America first, just like the leaders of other countries should put their country first also. But America first does not mean America alone. When the United States grows, so does the world.
That was the president earlier today in front of world leaders in Switzerland, touting his administration's economic accomplishments and pushing his America First agenda. After his big speech, the president tweeted back, quote, headed back from a very exciting 2 days in Davos in Switzerland. My speech on America's economic revival was well received. Many of the people I met will be investing in the USA. The president's right. European CEOs praised his giant tax cuts, and many of them said, in fact, they will or they have made huge investments in the U.S. That means more good jobs for the forgotten men and women in this country. And meanwhile, here at home, a heated battle over immigration reform is now ramping up. The president released his framework for immigration reform today. It includes $25 billion for the border wall system in exchange for a pathway to citizenship for DACA-eligible individuals. And, of course, Democrats are already attacking it. Listen to what crazy Nancy Pelosi had to say about the president's proposals.
Let me just say what I said last night. That plan is a campaign to make America white again. They want the ransom for these children to be $25 billion for a wall.
And prompting President Trump to tweet, DACA has been made increasingly difficult by the fact that crying Chuck Schumer took such a beating over the shutdown that he's unable to act on immigration. Here with reaction, the #1 show on the Fox Business Network, Lou Dobbs is back with us. Good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you, Sean.
Listen, I want the wall.
Okay.
Okay. Democrats don't want the wall, and they don't want DACA because that's what they want to run on in 2018. And Lindsey Graham and people like Jeff Snowflake are helping the Democrats.
Am
I right or wrong?
Well, you're right. There's just one problem. Schumer's going to be there. The Democrats are going to be there. They're going to lie through their teeth, just like they did since Ronald Reagan in 1986 with the first amnesty. By the way, it's not a border wall anymore. Didn't you see the flash out of the White House? It's a border wall system, and well, we're going to apparently build ramparts around the ports of entry, too. And it's not a wall. It's not a wall, Sean. It's a trust fund. Don't you feel better about that?
No, I don't. But
because I nothing else. I trust Chuck Schumer and the Dems.
No, listen, there's no deal for the president at all unless he gets the money.
He's the one proposing
if he gets the money.
This isn't Schumer's deal.
No, I've talked to the president. This is what he told me. He said that the border agents prefer a see-through wall, that it will be built along... Hang on.
With a light veneer and a little chiffon on the side?
No, it's going to say Trump in gold letters. I don't know. But
it should be a big, beautiful wall with those big, beautiful doors. Just like he described.
But it could be see-through is fine.
The border
agents say they want that.
That's great. but they're not testing that with the commandos, so I don't know where we're going with that. No. What I do know is that the forgotten man and woman you're talking about and the president campaigned for a year and a half are still forgotten when it comes to amnesty,
so
when it
what
comes
does the
to the
president
border
do?
wall.
Here's where we are. 100 House Republicans campaigned for years, repeal, replace. They had no intention, we learned last year. Hang on. 7 Senate Democrats, 2015, vote for clean repeal, and when it matters in 2017, they wouldn't do it. Say, we have Lindsey Graham, Jeff Snowflake, and other Republicans that have no intention. They want amnesty. So here's your trade-off. Do you pick the wall if you can eliminate chain migration and the visa lottery?
Oh, you mean like under the 4 pillars from the Trump administration?
Okay, I'm asking, or do you want nothing?
Oh, right now, you've got nothing, brother.
I'm asking, if you had a choice, are you being difficult to me? I'm your friend.
You are my friend, but I'm your friend.
Okay.
And you're being difficult with me, suggesting that this is some proposal from the Democrats.
This is a hypothetical I just gave you.
Proposal.
If the president could get the wall and end to chain migration and the visa lottery, would you accept what the Democrats are demanding, or is that a bad deal? That's my question.
Well, first of all, I don't know what they're demanding, because the only deal
DACA
on
legalization.
Yes, well, that was for 800,000, was it?
No, it's 3.6.
Oh, it's 3.6.
But the president said 1.8.
Because right now, Donald Trump has tripled Barack Obama's 800,000.
So you're mad at the president?
I'm not mad at the president in any way. He's doing great things.
So what should he do?
He's had the most outstanding year.
What should he do?
He should do what he's done on the economy. He should do what he's done on the military.
Hold the ground.
On law enforcement. He should make sure that every damn thing he's promised comes to pass, and he will go into history
Here's my take.
Forever.
Tell me if you agree with this. If the Republicans don't build 200 or 300 miles of wall by November, it will hurt them significantly in November. True or false?
Well, it's false, because they couldn't even screen out erosion.
So they are gonna break another promise, as usual.
Are you kidding?
I'm not. I'm asking. What do you think?
I don't know what to think, because you know the answer to this. But the Democrats are the problem. The left is the problem.
And so are liberal Republicans.
Oh.
Huge problem.
Did you mention Graham and Flake? I can't remember.
Yes, I did. All right. Boy, you are on fire.
Good to
Have a great weekend.
You too.
All right, when we come back, Hillary Clinton caught in a major scandal. Another one. Details next. So Hillary Clinton, she claimed for decades to be the champion of women, but according to a brand new report, well, during her 2008 presidential campaign, she allegedly intervened to keep Burns Strider, a senior advisor on her campaign, from being fired after accusations arose that he repeatedly sexually harassed a subordinate. Instead, Strider was ordered to receive counseling and lost several weeks of pay. We reached out to Clinton for a comment, and her spokesman referred us to a statement from the law firm that represented the campaign in 2008 saying, quote, to ensure a safe working environment, the campaign had a process to address complaints of misconduct or harassment when matters arose. They were reviewed in accordance with these policies, and appropriate action was taken. This complaint was no exception. Here with reaction, Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, radio talk show host Dr. Gina Loudon. Pam, your take? Because I'm looking at that and then thinking, oh, the same campaign that was paying women less, the same woman that took money from countries that abuse women, kill gays, and persecute Christians and Jews. That Hillary?
That Hillary. And Sean, this isn't a partisan issue at all. If this is a Republican woman, I'd be saying the same thing. She covered this up. Her campaign manager said that she should fire Strider, yet she kept him on after doing this to a young staffer on a campaign. How does that young staffer feel the rest of her career that another woman did that to her? And after the Me Too movement, women are now coming out, and that's why this story, after all this time, is coming out. It's shame on her.
Dr. Loudon.
But this is the pattern that Hillary has demonstrated her entire career since her husband, the sexual harasser in chief, was president, right? You know, she not only covers up any wrongdoing, she also then piles on and makes it worse for that victim. So much for her caring about young women and helping them in their careers. She's been completely discredited in this, as has the Democrat Party, as much as they want to try to own this Me Too movement. They just lost it.
How is it possible, Pam? Look at what we've been covering and what we've uncovered. How does she fix How does she fix a primary campaign against Bernie? How does Hillary Clinton have Comey and Strzok and all these other people that know McCabe and Loretta Lynch? How do they all know she's not really being investigated for what we know are felonies in the email server scandal? How does she